A warm welcome to you, Dr. Maiya Nthoesane. For introduction, just shortly, how did you get involved in leadership in Africa?
I've been involved for about more than 10 years in one of the South Africa university. But apart from teaching, then I've also been involved in leadership consulting on the continent, particularly in Lesotho, Botswana, Ethiopia, Eswatini, and Ghana.
In terms of leadership effectiveness in Africa, if we compare that with other countries, how do you see that?
When we refer to leadership, it's my view that we need to look at leadership in its totality: civil leadership, government leadership, and private sector leadership. Notwithstanding the fact that probably most of the drive from the leadership will be viewed from government point of view. And the proxies that I would like that we use, there are three, but maybe let's focus on the two. When you look at the Human Development Index and Sustainable Development Goals and World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index, in my view, these are some of the metrics we can use as a reflection of where the leadership on the continent is, as juxtaposed to the leadership in the rest of the world. Now, when you study the Human Development Index, as we're really looking at three dimensions that are put together: the long and healthy life, knowledge, and decent standard of living. Now, when you look at the index, the sad part is that when you look at the top 10, I can even go to top 20 of the nations with high development index. None of them on the African continent. Conversely, when you look at the bottom 20 and bottom 10, all the African continents in Human Development Index are in the low to very low development index. As far as the livelihood and the standard of living of the populace is concerned, our leadership is not doing good there. If there's one variable that leadership and individuals can be certain about is going to happen, it's change. Leadership needs to initiate and be change focused. If we create change, we provide for ourselves an environment to create the parameters within which we can manage it better, rather than us being waiting for change and responding to change. So my view is from the leadership perspective and point of view, we need to have a pro-change mindset in how we engage, in how we plan, and how we execute, and in how we build our nations or businesses. Once we have a pro-change mindset, then it lends itself to us being able to then, to a certain degree, manage that change within the parameters of some predictability. Because if we are reacting to change, every variable that is moving, we are doing a catch-up. So leadership cannot be found sleeping on the duty and waiting for change to happen. It needs to initiate and create change. In fact, it needs to be very uncomfortable if the status quo doesn't change. The continent is made up of 52 sovereign countries. And in that 52 sovereign countries, we have pockets of excellence, and we've got areas of concern that we need to look at. We're trying to take the sum average of what the continent is doing. I think we have a long way to go. So it is my position and my point that the continent has got a scope. We have a long way to go. And maybe let me also pause there and say, that said, it is my view that we, for years as the continent, have been an importer of ideologies and systems to, in my humble opinion, to our detriment. We need to start pausing and say, what is it that we inherently have? What is it that we inherently do that we can only do better than the rest of the world, so that we can engage with the world from the position of strength and not from the position of weakness? It is my positioning that we're still far behind the curve of being better.
Indeed so. If you look in your crystal ball, how do you see the next 10 years?
Look, Prof, I probably just want to mention 5 things that I think we need to pay special attention to in the coming 5 years or 5 to 10 years. Firstly, and recovering from COVID, the economic growth of the continent and all the regions, there are prospects of recovery in economic growth generally in the continent. So that for me, it's very good because it says to government and business entities, we need to look further than the continent. There is recovery in the continent. We need to engage and build economic sustainability in the continent. That's point number one. Number two, it has been found by a number of studies and researchers that the Africa's population is growing rapidly and is growing young. Now, that is both a double-edged sword to the extent that in the short term, that is putting burden on already struggling continent. But in the medium to long term, it means we are positioned as a continent to drive the ideologies and positioning socio-political and economic future because of our young and growing economy. And they are hungry for knowledge and hungry for success. So that's going to be one of our success factors. Number three, the continent remains isolated, Prof. When you look at the participation in the global economies, it only represents 3%. And it's argued that by 2035, that will have only grown by 1 percentage point, which is 4%. That is telling us we need to work on our mindset and need to be aggressive in positioning the continent in global and economic conversations. So this 3% needs to move towards double digits. Number four, which is very funny, when you look at the intracontinental trade, Africa only trades with itself for about 16%. It's telling us to say, even if we just focus on the continent in terms of trade, we can better the 16% and at least aim for doubling that number to 32%, which will still be lower than the current numbers of East Asia of 35%. And number five, and the continent is urbanizing, is that there is a highly likely, but that means there'll be more innovation on how we plan spatial planning and how businesses grow and how the continent need to conceptualize the migration of people from rural areas to urban areas. While urbanization is going to drive the continent, let's not forget that the rural areas are going to be left, and we still need rural areas for agriculture because Africa accounts for 60% of arable land in the whole world. If there is no good governance, all these things that I'm mentioning above are just going to be a pie in the sky. Those are the 5 things we need to look to in the coming 5 to 10 years that will drive leadership, that will drive the continent, and leadership need to pay special attention to those things.